Saturday morning, time for us to kick off the Experts program, and Luis Alvarez, our tech expert, is helping us out here. Good morning, Luis.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So we've got big week this weekend with the rodeo. I'll be heading over there in a little while. Looking forward to that today and tomorrow. Are you going to head out to the rodeo, or did you guys get out there already?
Yeah, we're going to head out. We already were out there, but I'm heading out there on Sunday again.
Okay, so you're probably out there for the Thursday night sponsor tent, right?
Yes, yeah.
That's always a great party.
Not a dull moment, that's for sure.
Well, you better believe it. Hey, we got a really fascinating topic today. Tesla's big battery plant in South Australia, according to Nissan, is a complete waste of resources. What's up with this?
Well, if you recall, a couple of years ago, there was an incident in West Australia. This is one of the hottest places on the planet where people live, and they had a breakdown in some of their power transmission facilities. And so for a couple of weeks during the middle of their summer, they were without electricity, which, of course, presents some problems, as you can imagine, when it's 120 outside. So, it turns out that Elon Musk, being Elon Musk from Tesla, said, hey, we'll set up a battery backup unit for you because they have wind electrical generation. But, of course, that doesn't run all the time, and they had no way to store the excess power. So long story short, he promised to build essentially a battery pack storage system that could store enough power to power the area in case they lost transmission again. And he said he'd do it within 100 days or he'd do it for free. Well,
I remember that a couple of years ago we talked about that.
Yeah, and it turns out he did it in 68 days. So they obviously paid him. And since then, it's been working flawlessly, providing additional power. And it's become a model for a number of projects that are taking place all over the world, including in the United States, where people are using renewable sources of power like wind and solar, coupling them with battery storage systems so that they can store power for those times of the day when they aren't producing electricity. And I've recently done it myself at home. I just got solar at the house, and we have a Tesla wall that is a big lithium-ion battery pack. I had the folks from my good friend Pete Scudder's company, Scudder Solar, come out and do it, and they did a terrific job. And it's been fun to see the amount of electricity that we're generating versus what we're using. And we're in the last month that we've had the system in place, about 98% of the power that we're using for the house has either come from the solar system or from the battery unit. So we're only taking about 2% from the grid.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good.
Well, it is. And what motivated me to get solar, I've been thinking about it for a while, and some of my neighbors had done it. But then this year, PG&E made an announcement that because of the Paradise Fire and some of the other fires that we experienced last year, they are now going to be shutting down the grid in cases where inclement weather or windy conditions exist that might cause sparks or might cause down power lines that can cause fires like it did in the Paradise Fire up north. And which means that those of us who rely on PG&E for power might find ourselves without electricity, not because of anything that's happening around us, but simply because PG&E has decided that they're going to be very cautious about keeping power on the grid that might somehow spark a fire.
So let me understand this. Even if the potential threat is hundreds of miles away, somewhere else in the PG&E service area, it could end up impacting us by the way that they shut down portions of the grid.
Exactly.
Okay.
And especially if they have to shut down a major transmission line that powers not just one area of the state, but provides power for other areas of the state. And so they've already said, hey, be prepared for more blackouts this year as we get into fire season and get into that time of the year where we have high winds and not a lot of moisture in the air.
Right.
And that really was the deciding factor for me. I said, well, the solar credits that you get for installing a solar system for residential and commercial organizations, that starts to decline after this year. You get 100% of the credits through 2019, but next year they start to phase them out. And over 3 years, residential tax credits will disappear entirely, and the commercial tax breaks will get down to around 10% instead of 33% that it is now. So it's a significant cost savings if I do it now, whether, instead of waiting down the road. And the thing that just basically tipped me in the direction of pulling the trigger was the fact that I don't want to be without power for an extended period of time just because PG&E's having issues.
Well, could you have put a generator in, a gas or, natural gas generator at your home instead?
I couldn't. Unfortunately, I live in a community that has a housing association, and they have actually put out the word that you cannot have generators, loud generators. Now, if you can figure out a way to have a generator not make a sound, you can have one.
Okay.
But otherwise, if it makes any sounds, you're not allowed to have a generator. So, my options were limited. If I lived someplace else, perhaps that would be a better solution.
Mm-hmm.
But the other aspect of this particular system that has the Tesla wall and very sophisticated solar panels was that it came with a lot of technology around it that lets you monitor the state of your system, how much power you're producing, what you're pumping back into the grid versus what you're using. And, based on just my experience over the course of the last month, I expect that I will have no electrical bills from PG&E this year as I pump back a significant amount of electricity into the grid.
But, it's funny, you can't have a generator because it might make noise.
Yeah.
But every day the gardener's out there with a leaf blower.
Yeah. Absolutely. Or, my neighbor's out there doing some construction project that is louder than a generator would ever be.
It's amazing. Well, that's pretty interesting. But thinking about something kind of related to this, the electric cars, which are becoming more and more popular, but thinking about the range of them, how far, how many hours you can drive. What got me thinking about this was I remember last year taking a very long drive across the country. I drove 12, 14 hours or more per day. There was nothing stopping me. I would just stop and get gasoline and then keep going. And I thought, well, if you're going to take like long trips and you have an electric vehicle, can you cover as many miles in that vehicle as you can with a gas-powered car? Because, what point do you run out of energy and you've got to stop and plug the thing in for a few hours?
That's a great observation. I can tell you my neighbor has a Tesla. The S series, and he got the version that has the extended range, so he has slightly over 300 miles that he can go on a single charge. And for him, when he travels and he takes his car wherever he goes, he's gone to San Diego, he's gone north to northern parts of California, and he knows where all the supercharger stations are for his Tesla.
Right.
And he plans, activities around that. So he gets down to San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara area, plugs his car in, has lunch, gets it, it recharges. These superchargers can recharge your battery in as little as 30 minutes. Okay. And then you're off to LA, and you either stop there or go further into San Diego and find another supercharging station. And that's really the beauty of the Tesla system is not only did they create the cars, but Musk was smart enough to create the infrastructure to support the cars. And they just recently opened a new supercharging station version 3 in Las Vegas, which can recharge a car in as little as 15 minutes.
Okay.
So he gets the fact that in order to make these things viable, they need to be able to have long ranges, or at least the ability to recharge quickly. Nobody wants to plug their car in for 4 hours so that they can continue along their journey. So it's a model that I think other electric car companies are following, and I think we're going to see more and more electric cars on the road because people just like them.
Yeah, undoubtedly. Undoubtedly. Now, the thing I haven't run into yet, because these cars are so new, is what repair costs are like on them and what shops you can take them to where the mechanics know how to work on these, because obviously there's going to be a learning curve there. And will it be cheaper to maintain than a gas-powered vehicle, or will the expenses of taking care of it be another huge bite on your wallet?
Yeah, especially when you think of all the technology that is built into these cars. So it's not just changing brake pads and oil changes. You're actually talking about computers, multiple computers in these cars that could break down or could fail and have to be replaced. So I think the jury's still out on what that looks like, simply because, like you said, we haven't had enough of a history with them yet. Right. But as these original Teslas start to age, I think we'll get a better indication of what that looks like.
Right. And right now, the people driving them are folks that have pretty good incomes that they can handle these kinds of things. What I'm worried about is the fact that, for example, the state of California wants to get more and more people into electric cars, so they're talking about some very heavy subsidization programs to make it more affordable for people to buy these types of vehicles. So, they want to try and get people out of like $15,000 putt-putt that they can afford to drive and get them into an electric vehicle. But I don't think what anybody has considered is if somebody doesn't have the wallet to purchase, say, a $50,000 or $75,000 $35,000 car, but you subsidize their purchase so they can get it for like 15 grand, they're not going to be able to afford the maintenance on the vehicle, right? It's like, let's say a guy makes $30,000 a year and somebody says, as a gift, I'm going to give you a brand new Mercedes-Benz. Well, that's great, but turns out he can't afford the oil changes. He can't afford to fix the brakes. He can't afford any of the parts on the vehicle because he doesn't have the income that can pay for all that. So he really needs the $15,000 putt-putt.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like somebody giving you a $2 million home and saying, okay, here you go, but then you're on the hook for the
taxes.
The property taxes on the thing every year.
Yeah, exactly. It's like more than you paid for your condominium. So that's something that has to be looked at, and it'll be really, that's the next thing, right? That's the next thing with the electric vehicles is we want to find out what does it cost to keep these things going? And if it turns out to be substantially more than other types of vehicles, then you could possibly see maybe a slowing down of the adoption of the technology, or maybe folks saying, well, wait a minute, why can't we have hybrids, that run on compressed natural gas and electric, something that maybe could be a little more affordable to maintain. I don't know.
We will see. There's a lot of experimentation going on in cars, and there's still plenty of, internal combustion muscle cars being built today. So those folks who like their gasoline-powered cars, I don't think they have to worry about those disappearing anytime soon.
Well, that's good because I'm building one of those right now.
Yeah.
All right. Luis Alvarez, the CEO of the Alvarez Technology Group, has been our guest today, kicking things off for us on Power Talk Radio. And Luis, let's see, folks want to get in touch with the I-Team. What's the 800 number?
Give us a call at 866-78-I-Team. That's 866-784-8326.
And online, it's alvareztg.com, and the Twitter handle is @alvareztg.com.